banter group-wise after a thing like that. There's just such a resource here in terms of what people have noticed. And we will surprise each other by the different things, I would say, is my experience. And so sometimes it's nice to just get a little bit for everyone. It's not obligatory, so don't feel put on the spot.
So Matthew and I said that we'd have a little exchange to kick things off and then open it up, if that sounds okay.
Yeah.
But I'm sure a lot of people have got things to say. Thank you for that absolutely beautiful, so distilled, interesting performance, intriguing performance. Thank you. It was an absolute delight. So you and I, Matthew, we go back a ways and share. We're both. I know that you use the word radical. I was going to ask you about that. Independent artists, dance practitioners, but we do share a history in a more kind of industrial. Well, we're both in major ballet companies, as you say. I'm a bit of a different generation from you, but we do share that. So, and of course, what I'm seeing in your work is that rich span of experience, overlapping experience, one was seeing so much in that in terms of the different sort of disciplines and language. And you know, there's. I'm very intrigued by the title, Ready.
Well, okay.
Which I'd love you to talk about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ready. Why not have a one-word title? And well, the usual channels of making new work in independent dance these days involve sketches of ideas, probably a proposal and an application for getting on board of partners, some residency time in the studio, the naming of mentors and why you need them, the first residency, the debrief, the rethink, the reapply, the work in a performance space, organising production and so on. It's very sort of step by step. There are ways of going through the usual channels. And what if you don't? What if you've got something? What if you think you've got something? What if you think you've got something that you just need some eyeballs to look at in a raw space, in situ? So what if you're ready without engaging the usual channels and the usual forces? So I emerged out of the lockdown with this work because I had found a way to move my furniture and explore my space and continue to train in full. And to answer some of the questions around that, you can really do yourself in if you work alone. You can give yourself arthritis, you so can. And you need to have some other force moving you along and making decisions for you. And I suppose I've got two of those going. One is the music of Beethoven, which has its movements and it proposes ideas. So if I'm listening well to those things, that will reshape the way I would do my A, B, C, D, E, F, G warm-up. I might go A, B, D. I might go back and forth a bit, and that would be very healthy for the body. I might not dwell too long in strenuous things. So that's going on as something to tell me how to work alone in a healthy way. There are some more choreographic figures that I wish to practice too. Our physical training in be connected to choreography, would be connected to making something new. So yes, to justify going through the rudiments, it's important to put in some choreographic figures to repeat practice.
The clap, the point, the flourish. There's a flourish, isn't there, that seemed quite courtly, that's repeated.
That's a 3. It's a number 3.
Oh.
Yes. That's my 4.
Okay.
That's my 2. Here's a 5, Roman.
Okay.
Here's a 6. And there's a 7.
Lovely.
There's an 8, circle, circle. That leads to a 9. And then I've got a 10. So I do that in accumulation. I do 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I do an accumulation. And later on I do a disaccumulation. So I drop out the 1, then I drop out the 2, then I drop out the 3. And I haven't found a word for disaccumulation. There might be a mathematical term. Accumulation and disaccumulation I'm doing.
There's hitting the floor as well and holding your head.
The knock, that one.
Yes.
I teach that exercise in a college, and we go down in 2 and come up in 2, and I've asked for a knock at the bottom.
Nice. Simple but
It just gives another, just gives a tiny impulse, which is good for the whole body, but also in a class with a whole bundle of people, it's a communication between everyone. It's this knock, and it's like brings the class together. And then of course I like the fact that it can be taken as something else entirely in a performance like this.
I mean, there's a lot of class structure, system, discipline. I found it emotional. I don't know if other people did at times. So you're making the numbers, but you're actually stroking your body. You're caressing your body, which I found, and I personally found your hands spoke stories all the time, were deeply touching. So there's an emotionality about what you're doing. I don't know whether you're feeling that.
I'm committed. I'm committed, and there are emotions around that. The commitment, and I've got to do this. So certainly, I'm not denying emotions, but I let them rest. I'm not particularly manipulating those, but I'm enjoying, of course, when there's a gorgeous funereal sound coming out. I'm going to enjoy it. Like going to your own funeral. Hands, though. I mean, if you articulate a hand, you've articulated your whole body. There's messages going on.
Yes, that's what's coming
you see,
through.
there's a limit to how much you can move the big joints in your hour and a half of practice. There's a limit to how much joint work you can do, but by involving the hands, particularly. Okay, so there's these spirals. That's going to release the whole body with a whole lot less effort than doing it dry, and that's important for me. And also connection, contact, own body contact. My hands don't judge me; they support me. My hands are helpful to me. They are the non-judgmental support and contact to make this sustainable and to make this have a future. Actually, I've got to use my hands. I've got to have their support.
Very, very beautiful hand. And I'll just say one last thing, and we should open it up. So I was enjoying the sort of what I call the sort of objecthood of your movements. You were moving continuously, but there was space and time. You know, we were allowed to really engage visually and emotionally and kind of aesthetically. You know, you could see clearly all the gestures, all the movements. So, you know, there was an objectification. They were out there. You could hold them. You know, they were there. So I really liked that kind of space. So.
How lovely! How lovely. Yes. Well, okay. You've heard us speak and you've seen me move, and so I put information out there in various ways. And it was great because it gives my life a shape, you know, coming into that, and it gives me goals and gives me all sorts, which is wonderful. What would be great is if each of you could think of and say briefly, perhaps in a sentence, or just to say what jumped out at you, what struck you. That's all. And what jumped out at you, what struck you. Well, maybe we'll go around, if that's okay. And then if you hear somebody say the thing that you were going to say, see if you can come up and think that struck you next. See if you can not duplicate, so that we just get a pool of stuff. And then maybe I'll ask some questions.
Theme and variations. That kind of struck me quite early on. The setup on the floor and the increasing development.
Good. Theme and variation.
Yeah.
Great.
You don't see that so often. Well, you go and see all these ballets and there's a variation, but it's not a variation.
It's an oddly applied term. It's usually applied to a 19th century folk solo, a variation. There is a variation though, because it's usually they do the same thing 4 times over, a little better or worse. You see?
Yeah.
So I think that's why they call it a variation.
Yeah. But
In other words, if you repeat the same thing, knowing that it won't be the same. And that is a little bit what I'm doing, is it not? Because everything that I do on the right and on the left.
There's that to it, but yours felt like much more like a structural theme than variations.
Okay.
You know, in the musical sense.
It's connected to the music for sure.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt very connected to your conviction all the way through. That really read to me. And skill. I was just kind of constantly washed over by skill all the way through.
Am I allowed to say, I'm just going to say 3 words.
Okay.
To reach on the task, is that okay? Sustainability, touch, and fascia. So I'm going to let everyone say.
So we talked a little bit before, Matthew, the other day about the work. So I said I already had some background, which was really helpful in a way to. What I really enjoyed was the conversation with oneself. So the way that you started on the ground, and it was a very sort of tentative awakening, and then it explored into the body with quite a lot of tentativeness, I felt, and then with increasing sort of confidence is the wrong word, but sort of confidence in the ability to be able to do something. You know? So I found that very moving actually, because it was a sort of lesson in a way to me about how one might be kind to oneself in terms of allowing a sort of edge to extend the practice a little bit further. And then it turned into me for something that was both interior and exterior, sort of conversing with oneself. And then for me, at certain other moments, there was somehow a conversation with somebody from the outside, so that that came in and out. So
Yes,
I
I
think-
did like it when people moved around. I
Yeah.
sort of found that really stimulating
right,
and useful.
yeah, yeah,
I could say that my experience of the performance had really two parts. The part before people started moving, and then the other part.
yeah.
Felt very different to me. Might have been a coincidence, like certainly with the Beethoven sonatas, there's something he's exploring quite intensely, and then he breaks. I'm sure I'm influenced by that. He's a good storyteller. Change the subject, bring the second theme in.
Yes, indeed.
It's unequivocally, uniquely you, and it's really reassuringly as it always was, and delightful, and completely choreographic and compelling.
Thank you. Thank you. Fergus.
Well, first of all, I thought it was a beautiful piece of dancing. Just a wonderfully danced. And one of the things that struck me, particularly I think in the earlier part of the piece, was you were talking about hands, but what I got really fixated by was the transfer of weight, your feet, the articulacy of your feet, and the transfer of weight in so many different ways, from one foot to the other, or from 2 feet to one, or from 1 to 2, all of that. And I found that really, really absorbing.
So, at first I was taught when the foot extends that you don't tense the toes, that you just keep the toes actually quite relaxed. And that's marvellous to work with, that continue to think. And then it comes to hands as well, so that you get things like that. That's like, and so if I'm taking myself out to second, I go, I don't know what the name is for this, but that bit that's usually not on the floor, it can actually go to the floor. So I'm very aware of this part of a toe, and I'm finding it very supportive. In years gone by, one might have just, but these days it's got to be. Running.
I've got loads to think the relaxed toes, that part of your training is really interesting. Yes.
Oh yes,
It's
it's like you could go along with them, but you don't fold them over. You actually,
this is really
you can think also that they go like that, rather than like that. So you know, the little toe and the big toe do
the sort of
something.
the energy is released, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. So you're not blocked. The prime example of that foot is that of Michael Clark. If you have a look at his feet,
Yes.
yeah.
I will.
Do save those feet. Save those feet.
So many things. I feel so emotional and I feel quite tearful. I felt quite tearful a lot of the time, and then ecstatic and euphoric. And I was totally with you, and I've never ever been exposed to a male dancer's form so close and with such high art. So I was really able to observe every part of your body and the energy you gave us throughout. Throughout, high energy right from the start. It just blew me away. And the finger,
Yes.
so potent.
Well, I mean that's outbreathe candle, isn't it?
Oh.
I mean it's the letter I as well. you know, but it's got all these connotations. And I think that by repeating the work as often as I have, I get to understand possible connotations. Maybe the music brings another connotation that, and now I think of it as actually candles.
There was a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of storytelling.
Do you know what though? I don't want to waste anybody's time, and that's the thing. I'm asking people to come into a room and see something quite simple, unadorned, let's say, and it, you know, and I'm asking people to just watch a body fold over and things like that. So it'd better be elevated, haven't it? Have a bit of a cheek, you know. Just asking people to, like, you know, here's my holiday photos.
Nothing like that. I feel really privileged and grateful to be a guest here. Please, can you undo the jacket with me? What were you doing with that? Please.
May I come to that afterwards?
Yes.
Let's get right around.
Yes.
You don't have to, Saffron, but if you have...
Well, I just say what I said to you. Whenever I'm in a room with Matthew, I feel like I sit up straighter. I'm not a dancer at all. And I felt like I had a workout watching that, just because but not in a horrible way, in a like really relaxed way, but my body feels stretched and better for watching it as a punter. I thought it was hilarious at times, but I fear now that might be because I was reading stories because I only know theatre. And I thought when you were doing the finger that it was your daddy who gave you the records telling you to be quiet when you were little. So I had a whole scenario going on with you growing up, as well as all these, what seemed to me like almost Harlequin Shakespearean theatre characters, but that they were doing repeated things. And the only other word I wanted to say, having heard an explanation, was Fibonacci. Because those...
The sequencing.
Yeah, because they write poems sometimes just using the numbers of Fibonacci.
Yeah.
So you could do a jazz version with Fibonacci taking the fours away.
Oh, what?
Is it? But it was fantastic.
It's Bartok?
Bartok, the Fibonacci series runs through my months and stuff.
Okay.
They go through the numbers sequence, then you do backwards.
Okay.
And it's great.
Right.
That's my go. Sorry, because I know. See, everybody sort of said everything, but I understand nothing. So I'm kind of this weird thing where you sort of think, well, at least I've got to 65 and I've still seen something I've never seen before, you know, being exposed to it. So that's a brilliant thing. And also, just as a bit about Ava, it's the living thing in your movie is like, it's in there, then you hear sort of Patagonia, stuff like that come down, and then you see like just bits inside moving. I take that because it's just got this swirl that goes with the figures.
Yes.
But you know, he changes it. There's a bunch of ones in there I didn't know.
Okay.
Where it's just he does that really bing bong down octaves and just adds little bits of it into it. And then you went down with it, which was
It's because I've heard them so much now. I never listened to this music before I got hold of the box, which was summer before last, and it was a whole new musical world for me, in a sense. I would say that I'm not going to go everywhere that the music's going. I'm not going to go everywhere. Physically, it would wear me out. However, I would sometimes identify some of those runs of notes with a sort of on a cellular level, perhaps. I think my veins are pulsing in that way, or the bones are, you know. I did work with a choreographer briefly, a Catalan man, and Cesc Jalabert, and he gave us workshops, and he talked about the Symphony of Bones. Symphony of Bones. Yeah, what's going on? Yeah, Symphony of Bones. So again, for sustainability, I've got to draw on those things. There was something that Simon said that I wanted to pick up on. What? Can you remember?
What was I saying?
Conversation with himself.
Conversation, and the sort of extending outwards.
Extending outwards. Okay. It maybe will come, but you mentioned an aspect of this.
Being kind to oneself.
Being kind to oneself. Yes. Oh, well, it's possible that this is the only dance piece I'll ever do from now on. It's possible. It might be. When you see, the thing is, I'm physically in the state that it's actually hard for me to do movements set by anybody else. I haven't been to a class since lockdown. I haven't gone to address anybody else's material. So
Well, I think that I think possibly that is that will give you longevity. I mean I think quite a lot of dance practitioners, artists. Fergus and I some years ago put a book together called The Wise Body. It was a series of interviews of older practitioners, and they said a similar thing, that it's about finding their own dance. There was a lovely everydayness I was going to say about your movement as well. That with all the extraordinary techniques and influences, I love the sort of just that quality of the ready-made and the everyday. And people say, dance has a hard time being viewed as an art form sometimes, If it's not art, what is it? And sometimes we struggle with that, but I think, I thought it was such a rich piece of art that we this afternoon. Just really, the combined disciplines are now so rich.
The jacket stuff's come in quite recently, although I know from experience, if you're just going to pick something up, all of your fingers, your eyes, everything works harmoniously to do that. So it's a motivated movement, and it's very healthy. There's watching movement that's obviously motivated to do something practical. There's an ease of watching, so it gives you all the rest. And so it's a symbol. He's picking up that jacket, and so the jacket stuff's coming. I just mention it because of the everydayness. Okay, so yes, that's coming. It might not be a jacket. It might be a duvet cover. It doesn't have to be a jacket, but today it was a jacket. But I guess there's an implication of the person in the jacket. You see, so the jacket's more loaded than if it was just a big piece of fabric. And it's my jacket. So there you go. You invoke a lot of things by using something
And
like
jackets
every
have
day.
got arms, so
Yes.
you think of carrying.
Yeah.
Can you say something?
And it's just, I think everybody was just they're really moved and touched. I mean, by being together in ensemble, a live event, because this studio has been very closed and shut down, and it's just a reminder of just how important the embodied life, the embodied work is. So, it's just really important.
Yes,
And that's what you're contributing.
Sure. You were going to say something, Tim? No?
Yes. It's something about. So the word about. So the work is about, And a lot of the time we can say, oh, the work is about X, Y, and Z, and it takes us to this thing or that thing. But I think I have felt this in the past when I've listened to you and studied with you, and I think I felt it today, that I don't need to apply that word.
Right.
But actually, it's there in everything.
Yes.
But be careful about treading too quickly into naming something, because it may not be that. It may be something else.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm not very into the about, and I'm suspect when many choreographers in dance artists in our field have to, for some reason, start by saying, my work deals with, my work is about. I think, how can it be? Like,
it's impossible.
If it's,
Why should be?
if I don't see that it's about that, then it isn't.
And I could watch that tomorrow and see something completely different.
Indeed.
But I think that's the fault of those arts council forms you were talking about. Because you have to fill them in and say what it's about.
I suppose there's a lot going on. I mean, I may just simply not be able to say what my work is about, that's all. So it may be that I can't manage it, so I don't enjoy it when other people can. You know? But yes, the about. What is it about? What is it? Oh, well, I know why I'm doing it. I'm committed. It's the commitment, really. And I mean, I've aired with you that I've sort of got to do it because it might be all I can do. So hey, I suppose it could be about something like that.
Can I just quote you from this book? I'd also plug it. It's a book that I put together in 2017, and it's got a very nice interview with Matthew. And just kind of picking up on something there, Matthew said, it kind of relates to this. Maybe ideas have fragility, certain pigments fade in the light. Some beautiful things do fade in the light. It's quite possible that some really meaningful and innovative piece of artwork has a similar quality. It actually gets used up under scrutiny. It's not quite what we were saying. We're not talking about your work. It's not about disappearing. But I thought that was a lovely, interesting quote.
Well, on that note, I'm really grateful that you could all come today. It's given my London trip a definite destination, and I would think of that in future wherever I go. I think, well, why don't I take what I'm doing and just air it? You know, I've enjoyed it, and it's given me a particular aim.
Can I just thank Flavia?
Please.
Can I just thank Flavia Bertram, who works with me at the Art Research Studio, who's been our camera person, and that will be interesting. She's been seeing you through the different lens all afternoon, so there will be some kind of film of
Wonderful. That's just amazing.
thank you.
I'm sorry. Also, there may have been something that jumped out at you.
I was mainly just trying to keep up, to be honest. So I was looking at your feet a lot and your hands and your brow, actually. So it was quite interesting to see how like the repetition of gestures was landing on your face, because you're doing the same thing over and over again, and every time your expression was miles apart. So I was more focusing on that kind of thing, but that was interesting to witness.
Facial expression, that was also something I enjoyed very much, because it's a great vehicle in a way for shifting the register, because suddenly it implies, it's a very beautiful thing to be able to use facial expression in a dance, because I suppose that somehow you're supposed to remain somehow impassive, but of course, so I enjoyed very much the fact that you use facial expression, and I think it adds in a very subtle way a huge amount of subtlety to the way what one might get out of doing it.
You have to relax your face, you have to relax and open your face. And when you're practicing in foreign countries and not using spoken word,
Right.
giving ideas, conveying your responses, animation in the face is another skill.
There's something really, the formality of the structure that has these repetitions and developments going on, and the face that is responsive in the moment. I was trying to kind of come to what is it about the humanity of what you're doing, your commitment, but it's the way that your face keeps changing and is responding in the moment. It grounds the whole thing in a reality of your practice.
It does. On a day like today, also, I'm there holding time, doing something, and it strikes me just how absurd this whole thing is, and I've got to enjoy that.
Well, I think that's also the strength, because this is your private practice, so the fact that we get to observe it, to me, is what makes it so special. And to observe that kind of internal conversation, that's what I feel I'm witnessing. That's what I mean by intention. It's so, without stating the obvious, of course it's embodied, but you actually get to see that. And that's an incredible thing, I think, to sort of take part in your practice. That's what I know I do.
We do want young performers and people that we're teaching, we want them to do that too, don't we? And not often don't feel permitted. Who's giving the permission? And we're going back to going through the usual channels again, actually. It's like permission is granted at every turn. Things are fostered in a healthy way, and that's great. But it's like, yes, permission is granted at each turn, and it's quite hard to get your work on unless somebody else thinks it's their idea as well. There could be something else. There could be something about somebody just giving themselves permission.
And also the idea for me that the subject matter is the subject. I mean, that's such a beautiful thing to witness as well. So often when he was saying other people's material is put on different bodies, different places, so that felt very insular, and then it became something else, which is wonderful to watch.
And I think that the title "Ready," maybe it's a reference to time as much as anything else.
Talking about face and also time, at several moments I could see in your face a boy. I could see you as quite a young boy. And sometimes maybe also, sometimes that and sometimes an adolescent. But
yes.
Really,
Yes, there is a connection with my father, just in the sense that he acquired these CDs. He was ill with cancer actually, and I think it was a bucket list thing for him. He just thought, oh, listen to music. What can I do? Listen to music. Better get some. And thought, as people do, Beethoven, piano sonatas. Okay, I'll get a box of 10.
11 hours, 40 minutes playing time.
It is. It's okay.
That's almost the only thing he said on the box. 11 hours, 40 minutes.
And the graphics are also really simple, empty squares.
That doesn't really say anything.
It's all about this time. So I did think about him while I was working, while I was listening to the music. Had he listened? I'm not sure. The box wasn't in cellophane, so at least took the cellophane off. So maybe he listened. I don't know, but I'm listening now, definitely in his stead. So I do think of him, and I do look quite like him. So there's a sort of generational thing going on. It's true. But also my commitment. In my commitment, I do recognise my initial urges to dance. Those are present in my commitment. There's one other connection with boyhood, and that is one or two of the movements of the Beethoven sonatas are part of set music in the Jacky method. And I didn't realise they were until I got this box set. I think, oh, okay, that's the tune they always used to play for a particular adage. So as a 12-year-old, there was one particular one that's on this one today. It's a theme and variations, but they used to just play the first 16 bars as you do, and it was an adage, and you stand a second and you take a slow grand plie, then you pull up to fifth and releve, and then you do a double and you do some développé. And my teacher, Laura Roche, when I was 12 in the Royal Ballet School, she was putting together a sort of demonstration, cast demonstration, to be performed actually at Richmond Theatre, and that was part of it. And she asked all the senior students, all the ones who were a bit older than me, to watch me do it. So I had to go into the middle of the studio and that music played, and she said, watch him do this, she said. He has a quietness. And that feeling of walking into the centre of the room and having a quietness that people should see. Do you see those are all indicated? And that's one of a number of recollections. So I will definitely connect with that wee person at that moment, and then I may thereafter too.
Would you like to find sort of closing?
I sort of feel we've done it. Have we done it? We've done it. We've done it. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And again, it's just for making this happen. And thank you for